Or do you want to do the intro, or do you want me to do the intro?
I was just about to say we just like jumped right in. We didn't
We're
share
skipping over
anything.
everything.
We didn't introduce ourselves.
Ah,
Sure. Since
yeah, do one.
I'm gonna try not to dominate the conversation about the men and how they're not okay and what's going on with them. So I'll go ahead and do the intro. So hello
Okay.
to whoever is out there. We are all the factors. My name's Annette. This is
Nav.
okay, and we are joined today by. Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Cairo. Wait, how big of an introduction should I do? Should I just say my name?
You know,
Nah,
I can say your
just
name and then give us a little bit like about you and like why you're here today and what you study and all that.
Okay, sure.
yeah.
I'm on your guys' show. I don't want to overrun anything too.
No, you're good.
Brother,
You're
we are
good.
so unprofessional here.
We are. I mean, you've watched a couple times, so you
Um,
know.
yeah, so my name is Cairo. I am currently a PhD student in school psychology, educational psychology. I have the intent on becoming a licensed psychologist in the future. Out soon, I'll be supporting work on adapting social emotional learning criteria for Black youth, in particular, adolescent Black males. So, kind of have some experience working with males and social emotional needs and what they talk about, looking at some of that data. Um, and yeah, I mean, this is something that I look at a lot. It's something that's very prominent right now, especially in the news. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm just excited to talk about it.
No,
Awesome.
I think
Thank you
this
so much.
is yeah. I think you're the perfect person to talk to about this. You're kind of the finished product of what me and Annette were supposed to be. But
Yeah.
so
Right.
so this is
Right.
great. This is great. I mean, is that a lie in that? Like, is that
No, no, we did. We both started. So I studied social work and he studied psychology. I'm sure you guys have talked about that. Way back when we did have ambitions of kind of furthering that, but we both just kind of strayed.
Yeah,
So it's
far
really exciting to
away.
hear from somebody who uh, kept going with it, and I'm excited to see what you
Yeah.
have to say about these men and these boys and what's going on with them.
And, Annette, feel free to jump in this conversation because I want to talk about Sabrina Carpenter. Are you familiar with that, Cairo? Like, what's going on with Sabrina Carpenter?
I am not. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I know I'm 25. I should be really engaged in social media. I'm not. I just stay in my own abode and just read books
That's
and take
probably
walks.
a
And
good thing.
so I
It's
try to
very
stay
much a
away
good
from
thing.
Yeah, we're
it.
way too online. But so, no,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess I just don't understand. What's the connection though? It seems like the Sabrina Carpenter thing is in uh, in women's lane.
Oh, no, my connection is that I want you to be involved in this conversation, so I feel comfortable being involved in the women's
Oh, I
conversation. You know
see.
that
I
it is
see. Okay, you're
purely
just selfish.
purely for me.
Okay, all right.
It's purely selfish. Yes, yes, yes,
Do you
absolutely.
want to
So
do a
I have like,
special
okay, well, you
just to
talk.
talk about Sabrina Carpenter? Is that what we need to do?
Wait, what?
I said, do we need to do a special just to talk about the Sabrina
We
Carpenter
have
album
to.
cover?
I think it's only fair. I think it is only fair that we next episode we talk about Sabrina Carpenter. I really want to. But okay, well, just to sum it up for you, Kara. Sabrina Carpenter thing is she is coming out with an album, right? And she released a album cover. We are way off topic, anyways, but it's
Already.
interesting. I think. Yeah, we just started. So she released an album cover where she's walking on all fours, and then there's supposedly, even that's being questioned, a man holding her by the hair and it's like he's dragging her. You know, I am not familiar with too much of Sabrina Carpenter's music, but it is extremely erotic. Is that a good way to sum it up?
So I guess there's, I mean, I want to wrap it up and get back on topic, but
Yeah.
I guess there's this one song that she has. I haven't heard this song, that when she performs live, she there's like a line in it where she performs like a different, like she pantomimes a different sex act during it. So I guess that's it. As far as what we hear a lot on the radio, like, yeah, I mean they're sexual, but I wouldn't say they're more so than your average pop song.
Yeah, well, exactly. But there's this whole controversy around that thing, right? Like, well, is it taking feminism back or anything like that? I don't think it is. But again, I'm a man. What do I know, right? So, but I want to have a conversation about that because all these women are going crazy. Well, it's not that, it's fine. I think it's great, but whatever.
I might make a video on it tomorrow. So after I do that,
Yes.
you can make one if it'll make you happy. But all right, so I guess some context for this. I mean, we saw in the last election, in the 2024 presidential election, right? We saw, I think, what was it, like a 13-point shift towards...
A massive shift, yes.
Yeah, I want to say it was 13 points towards younger
Which
men.
is massive.
Just like they didn't break it down, or what I looked at, that 13-point margin doesn't break it down by race, but just looking at it as a whole, it looks like if you look at Gen Z, they're moving further to the right and they're voting right at a rate that they really haven't in the past. So what we want to look at is what could be happening? What is so appealing about Trump and far-right politics to young men?
I will say this has been happening for a few years. So I believe it was a Gallup poll. It looked at from like 2016 to like 2023, like around those years. I think it was like in 2016 or so, men were voting. Their political preference towards like the Republican Party was like 34% or like 33%. While we go to like 2023 and it went up to about like 49% or like 47%. So like in the span of 7 years, which is quite fast, there has been that significant change for young men. While when you look at young women, it's the opposite. They're going more towards the left. So there is this like big change from like, so males are going more to the right and women are going more towards the left. So especially in 7 years, it is quite surprising to see that. But yeah, so the numbers have been going on this trail for a little bit of time.
Yeah, that's a huge jump, it seems. I mean, in only 7 years, which is just to like, I mean, if we're looking at election cycles, it's not even two full, it's not even two full elections. I mean, considering that the presidential elections are where you're going to get the most voters.
Right. The thing is too, and I kind of struggle with this a lot. And for somebody that keeps up with, I try to stay really hard away from TikTok until like my wife got me into it. Now I'm like hooked the feed right into my vein. I'm ready to go. Like it's. But but I was heavily involved in Twitter before then. Maybe it's me, and I was just kind of like oblivious to this. But I thought we were under the impression, I think me and Annette have had this conversation before, where we thought this new generation of Gen Z, was supposed to be super liberal, left leaning, and was supposed to be the savior of it. I was under the impression, right? Like I think me and you have had this conversation where we were like, oh, we are super hopeful for this the future generation coming up that is gonna really, I think before like after, I want to say maybe during the Joe Biden and Trump 2020 election cycle. I think during then, I think there was this like thing where it was like, oh, you know what, we're gonna actually move away from this this shift of like the older you get, the more conservative you become, right? Like our generation is just gonna completely break that cycle, and we're gonna really push towards this liberal leftist utopia that was gonna happen. I thought that's where we were headed. You know, I thought really like that was what was gonna happen. So when you guys talk about how there was this shift that happened, this 11-point shift that happened, and for it to happen to like Trump of all the people, like if it was somebody young, maybe I could understand it, like some really charismatic younger leader that is able to like speak to this like uh, like this younger crowd. You know what I mean? But for all the people, Trump to really do this, I I just can't understand it. Like, what made this the New Hope Star Wars reference, like then to
Some
go to the
gross
fucking
old
dark
man.
side. Yeah, like just to go it's like Star Wars. Like you had like Anakin Skywalker be this the one everybody was looking out for, and then Palpatine comes through, and then like bam, now they're the fucking Darth Vader. Like how did this happen? Like like is it just Andrew Tate we can blame? Is it who is this?
I I guess from my perspective, I could totally understand like the feeling that the younger generation is going in like a brighter mindset or a brighter future, or like it may seem that way. But I guess from like maybe like my perspective and the things I read and when I talk to like younger boys and younger like young men, I've never really had that impression. I guess I don't know. Um, I think
Impression that like they're more liberal or more conservative.
that they're more liberal.
Oh, really?
So yeah. So when I look at actually, if I could pull this up, or I could find a way to pull this up, but the University of Michigan did a survey where they looked at like 12th grade boys, or like 12th graders in general, and what they found was that girls in 12th grade, it was about like 30% or so identified as liberal. So 30% of 12th grade girls that they looked at identified as
Yep.
liberal, and 12% lean towards conservative. The rest, they didn't have any identification, or they didn't identify with anything yet. These are 12th graders, so they may not be too interested in that yet. But
Yeah.
when they looked at boys, they saw the numbers. It was about like 23% identified as conservative, 13% leaned as liberal, and then the rest was no party identification. So what they kind of found was that boys just don't really identify with any political party. It's either they don't care or they're just not looking into that. But what that means is when you have that large of a number of boys that don't care about politics or don't identify with a party's agenda, that means when they go on social media, they go on Instagram, they go on YouTube, if they see a video that leans towards something like that, like Andrew Tate or like Fresh and Fit or something, or Steven
Yeah.
Crowder, they're not explicitly saying a political party. They're just saying um, something about like the manosphere, how like boys are falling, and
Yeah.
so you start to get some of that feeling. You're like, oh yeah, I can definitely see that. And you start watching more and more, and your algorithm keeps changing. So even though you don't explicitly identify with a political agenda or a political party, the stuff that you're watching that you might identify a little bit more with, or what you're noticing, is starting to shape that. And you can see. I don't know too much about like youth Democrat or liberal programs, but in America at least, there's a lot more youth conservative or Republican programs that cater towards boys. You have what is it called, like Young American Found, or like Youth of America or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. It's like the American Youth or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Or
that
Young
caters.
Leaders of America or something. It's yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right, and even like for example, for me, I'll fully admit this. When I was younger, I was offered to go to something called Boys State, which is they do that in every state. I did Boys State, Connecticut. I loved it. They don't do. You go in and you basically role play as like American politics. You debate, you make laws, you do all
Oh, that's
that,
really cool.
Oh,
and but they
oh
don't do. they don't do Republican or Democrat, but if you would notice you would notice that a lot of the students were more conservative. So, and often they'll recite things that they've seen on YouTube. You know, when I was growing up, there was the change my mind videos or whatever, where he's like out on a
Yeah.
college campus and he's like, change my mind about this, and he'll argue it. So a lot of them
Yeah.
watch that on their algorithm, and although they don't identify with a party, they still have those unconscious perceptions of those things. So even though they don't identify with it, they resonate with it because of their algorithm and all these pushes towards them.
Yeah, and like Izzy said it perfectly. Like right before we even started talking about it, is people are reading less and going on social media more, and it's 100% right. But to even like go even further and kind of tie it to what you're saying is with, you know how before I like, you know how there's this thing going on with Hassan Piker talking about like, is he the left's Joe Rogan? Are we all familiar with that? Like how that's happening? Like the left needs this massive influencer, right? When we look at like streams like ours right here or Hassan's are, when you look at the broader view of whole unconventional media, I guess we'll say, we're not the mainstream, we're just like, you know, your quick hit kind of type of media, right? Like if you're looking at that, like Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, like all that, it is massively dominated. We might be in a bubble because of our leanings, but it's massively dominated by right wing. You know, we could probably name like 10 right wing people, but before this year's elections, we probably couldn't even name one left, you know, left leaning person. So I guess as you're saying, like, you know, these people are solely relying on like YouTube and podcasts and all these way, and these podcasts aren't necessarily pushing a party on you, they're just pushing a ideology on you rather, you know. But when you're that ideology like directly fits in with the Republican Party, not even so much as the Republican Party, more towards like the super MAGA party, I guess, right? um it kind of, I guess it kind of, you answered my question as to like how to, I guess it kind of makes sense because there's this gap happening, I guess you could say, uh, people moving away, people actively recognizing, you know, the mainstream media like the CNN, Fox News, like that is all bullshit, right? Like they have this hidden agenda to it, and they're moving more and more and more and more away from it. And but like as they move away from it, there's nothing from the left side talking to these young men about it, right? It's only just getting hit by Steven Crowder, Joe Rogan, Tim Pool, Andrew Tate, like all these people. So as we like to say, like, you know, like young kids are really really impressionable. Like that is the impression they're getting, right? Like perfect. Like you just pulled up. Like look how big the Reds are compared to the Blues. You know.
I would like to say you mentioned a key word, the word gap. I think just understanding and acknowledging that there is some form of gap occurring is one of the reasons why we're seeing young men going in the opposite direction, going more conservative or more Republican. I think it's a
Yep.
gap in media, and I think it's a gap in, you know, real life experience, real life experiences too. Like let's let's just kind of like dive deeper into like life experience real quick. So like when we look at like research, I think it was like in 2024 or something like that, it was like 47 or like 48% of US women from like 24 to like 30 something have a bachelor's degree compared to men who are 36% or 37%.
Yeah.
So that means, and also some surveys even show that women make up about like 60 to like 61% of college students. So you have young women that are more educated rapidly, mind you, because
Yeah.
in the past decades or so, like women weren't even allowed to go to school a long time ago. So you see this rapid acceleration of women getting their education, going to college, being in college. So, and you see this downfall of men going to college or getting an education, going more into blue collar fields like construction, welding. So when you have a party, for example, like the Democrat Party with Biden campaigning on the concept of forgiving student loans, right? So that
Yeah.
would affect young women more than young men, especially
Right.
since I think as of right now, women hold about 60% of or not 60%, like 60% of student debt because they are going to college. So for women and people that go to college, the men that go to college, but a lot of women that are going to college, they would find a lot of value in student loan forgiveness. I mean, I would love student loan forgiveness personally, but also
Yeah,
you see a
me
lot
too.
of yeah, but you see a lot of young men who are, ditching this idea of going to college and just going straight into the workforce, and they're seeing like, oh, all this money is going to something that doesn't apply to me, and that's a
Yep.
Democrat thing.
Yep.
I'm just gonna go to this other party that's against it. So
Yep.
there's a lot of these experiences that males in particular are seeing, and they're not really don't really believe in it, or they don't feel like it's valuable because especially in the United States where it's like a very individualistic country, you don't really have empathy to see other people's experiences. I think a lot of people, I mean, I think all three of us could definitely see like, oh yeah, it would be really nice for someone to have their loans forgiven so they can start working and raising a family. But in a country that's very individualistic, it's very like it doesn't apply to me, I don't really care about it. So
Yep.
there's this concept
Yeah.
of that basically also. And also when you look at key things like abortion, right? So um, Harris really ran on the idea of of those freedoms, but men don't really. A lot of young men, mind you, they don't have that experience. They don't understand how important it is, and they don't understand how important it is for people that are not like them. So when they see that, they just go to the right because it doesn't tailor for them, so they are more likely to go against it. So you have these lived experiences, whether it be like
Yep.
education or bodily autonomy or bodily rights that different parties have or different groups have, and they kind of diverge a little bit. If that makes sense.
No, I 100% agree. Uh, I'm gonna have this thought, and I had this conversation with this older person that comes to my store. He is heavily left leaning, um, although somewhat like void of geopolitical knowledge in case of like everything that's going on like internationally. But like, all right, Izzy, uh, thank you for coming by. But domestically, he is heavily left leaning. We had this conversation, but I want to before I tell you about this conversation because it kind of ties into what we're talking about here. I want to I want to ask something. What do you guys think about this I guess norm we've had, and it is quickly changing, but that men should make more, or should men be uncomfortable with the feeling that women might be making more money than they do, right? Like, what do you guys think about that?
Uh, I mean, I can go. Why
Would you
not?
care?
Go ahead.
I I mean, I personally don't care. I mean,
Right.
but wait, do you mean like in general or like a relationship? Because I mean, I don't care for either, but I'm just
Yeah,
curious,
yeah,
like
yeah.
what.
No, no. In a relationship, like let's say your significant other, she makes more money than you. You, what do you think? You're okay with it? Would you think like it changes the dynamic of your relationship, or even maybe not your significant other, right? Like maybe just say like you're single, you're going out to a club, a bar, a restaurant, you're going out on a date, and the girl makes more money than you. Is that intimidating for you? Is that what do you what like a thought? Any kind of thought?
No, not really. I mean,
Okay.
as long as if it's a job that she's really interested in, she has a passion for, and I see that passion in her eyes, then I don't care because I guess maybe I'm attracted to that more. But I do see that. So that's me personally speaking. I don't care about it as long as
Right.
we have that spark. But I will say, from a general perspective, um,
And that's where I'm going next. Yeah.
yeah, from a general perspective, I do see um young men maybe more of a, I'm like colloquially speaking, like a ick maybe.
Yeah.
And that brings up a good point because it's quite interesting. Because for men, testosterone.
Right.
Testosterone. There's this common perception that testosterone is like linked to like aggression and violence. It's not. So testosterone is actually more is heavily linked to competitiveness. It's not necessarily like violence or anger. You
Right.
Interesting.
just often see that when it comes to competition, there's violence and anger. But if you were to like hypothetically give a bunch of Buddhist monks testosterone, you were just inject like 100 Buddhist monks with testosterone, they wouldn't be like fighting or boxing. They would be
Yeah.
competing to do like the most nice serviceable acts because they're competition for social status, right?
Yeah.
So what males who have more testosterone or there's a spike in testosterone, they become more motivated to compete in various situations. So you could say, so since testosterone is linked to this competitive behavior and like status seeking, it does seem that a lot of males are competitive in those areas and they want to be in the top of whether it be the relationship or their work field or the workforce or anything like that because testosterone is kind of like linked to this idea of being competitive and social status and being on top. So that I think that's one reason why a lot of males, in particular young males, might have that ick, and I think
Right.
definitely um different like this manosphere thing definitely caters to that. So I think that from a general perspective, that may be one reason why a lot may have that
Right.
feeling.
Absolutely. Because that's heightening the values that are perpetuated by our society. I mean,
Mhm.
we are already perpetuating that a man should be the breadwinner and that a man should be the protector. So, of
Yeah.
course, um, in a period of higher testosterone or whatever, that is what they're going to want to try to strive for or achieve. So I
Yeah.
think that makes a lot of sense. I guess if you wanted my answer to the question, I obviously don't care. I mean, my goal in life is to have myself a little house husband. I mean, I would love that. But I think it shows. I don't know. Would you say this is wrong? If my initial kind of reaction to like the way back to saying like the men feel that they or the boys or the men, they don't feel like they would personally benefit from like student loan forgiveness because they're not going to school. To me, it shows a lack of forward thinking. Like, well, you might want a wife, like maybe it benefits her. Maybe she went to school to be a nurse or a social worker or something. Like, since a lot of us are still falling into these, like, a lot of jobs are still very gendered. Not to say that's a good thing, not to say that that should perpetuate or that it will, but for now it kind of is. So to me, it just kind of shows a lack of, like, yes, it shows a lack of empathy, but even if you're looking at yourself, it shows a lack of forward thinking.
Yeah, I will say it definitely shows a lack of forward thinking. I think a lot of people, especially young people, are very are more inclined to uh, instantaneous benefits, punishments,
Sure.
consequences in general. Because when you do poll young men on like what they're interested in or what they believe is important for the United States, they're usually more inclined to think of the economy. They're more inclined to think about. Sorry, there's like a. Sorry, I was trying to swipe something away. They're more inclined to think about the economy. They're more inclined to think about immigration. They're more inclined to think about the military. And I think that also comes to, especially the military, I think that also comes to this idea of competitiveness. Those are things that the Republican Party definitely promotes more of, like boasting the military, being the best country. And that's why you see a lot more males who are very passionate about the military, more nationalism, more things like that, because that is in the realm of competition. You want your country to be the best. You want your country to be on top. You want your military to be the best. So they're not really looking at education, or they're not really framing education to be too important. They're thinking about, how can we make the economy number one in the world? How can we think about making the military number one in the world right now, instead of like in the future with that education? And I think a lot of Republican platforms and the Republican Party really manipulates or caters to that thought of instantaneous punishment or consequences. Boasting the military right now. We need to stop China. We need to stop another country. We need to be the best right now, or the end is near. Instead of something like education, where it might take time, but you could see those benefits in the future. So I think they cater more towards those things, like now, out of like this idea of like fear in a way. And you can even see that for, actually, maybe I can like send this as like a link or something. Let me see.
They're not doing a good job. That parade was just not that great, man. That parade was that was a sorry ass parade.
It did seem like it dropped the ball a little bit. I didn't get to see much, but I saw that Trump fell asleep.
Yep.
They were marching out of step.
The tanks were squeaky, like they didn't oil them properly. The guy was carrying their drone. Oh yeah, a single drone. It was just one singular drone being carried. I'm like, brother, what is happening here?
Actually, here, I found it.
Being sponsored by Coinbase?
Maybe I can link this. Like, this is a. Can I put this in like the general chat or something?
Yeah, you should be able to send it to the general, I think.
So here is the Republican Party for Riverside County. I don't live there, but I did thought it was interesting how they talk about national defense, and kind of linking it to this idea of testosterone and competition a little bit. They emphasize that the Republican Party is committed to rebuilding the United States military into the strongest on earth, with vast superiority over any other nation or group in the world. So you could definitely see how that caters to this idea of being competitive, or being on the top of, like, not just the social ladder, but like the world ladder. So males are more inclined to this idea of being competitive and being on top. So when you have campaigns that are talking about making your country, or making your home, or the place that represents you, being the number one in the world militarily, definitely going to side more on that, and putting all 60% or whatever of your country's money into the military over education, or even something that has like international students coming in, because you're like, this doesn't represent my country. I want my country to be number one. So I think that's kind of what the Republican Party really caters towards, and a lot of males kind of soak that up.
The language is very patriarchal. It's almost like I feel like I'm gonna get like in trouble, or like put in the corner if I don't like comply. Like like it's like strongest on earth, vast superiority over any other nation. Like, okay, I'm sorry. I don't know.
We face a dangerous
definitely
world.
see how like a young male would definitely
We believe in a research in America.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely, and I do feel like we see this a lot. And I mean, here we've made fun of like this idea that they paternalize Trump, like, or people on the right do, like
Daddy Trump.
almost like they look up to him, yes, as a father figure. Would you feel comfortable speaking on that at all? Like, why is that appealing? Are young men looking for something? Like, what is going on there?
Yeah, I think there's like two separate things that could be talked about from that, but I'll stick with the Trump one more. It feels like when you're comparing Trump versus Harris or Trump versus Biden, Trump leans more towards the side of what we think of as like masculinity or like male interest more than Joe Biden or more than Kamala Harris. So like if you like look at what Trump did when he was running for president or the things that he even does now, like he would go to um he would go to fighting matches, right? He would go to championship fighting matches. He would
Still
go on
does.
podcasts with like people with like Logan Paul. He would go to like sneaker conventions. He would go to football games. He even
Cool
owned a
guy
football
stuff.
team once. Yeah, he
Yes.
he even owned a football team once. He owned the New Jersey Generals in the USFL. So like he lean and like he talks about cars. He definitely like caters more towards those like stereotypical male interests that a lot of males um find value with or interested in. Like he plays golf. He plays golf around the world. So you see these things that he's interested in. A lot of young
I mean, can we
men.
really call golf a sport, man? Like, listen, no,
You
no, I hate to go.
Listen, the
you'd be
men, they love
surprised
it.
how
If you can get drunk during a sport, like it's not really. I don't know. I don't know if you can really
It's
say
like
that.
the most popular sport in the U.S. or something like that. Like
Is
not
it?
watched,
Is it really?
but
it's pretty
participated in. It's
it's
at
pretty
least
good. It's growing a lot too. I think it because it's mostly I think because it's associated with this idea of being like this wealthy upper class person, you know, going on the golf course with your golf hat and you're the person that's with you holding all your stuff. You know, it's very like it gives this like aesthetic of upper class. So it's becoming very popular with a lot of people. But you see Trump going and doing all these things that gear more towards like masculinity or male interest. So I think a lot of young men are seeing that and they're really receptive to that. While I mean Kamala was doing things. I don't remember, but what was that thing? Was it like the hot girl summer voting thing, or I don't know. There was like that
Yeah.
thing. But a lot of guys were not really interested into that. And I believe Trump went on Joe Rogan too. So Trump really was really strategic with going on these things that a lot of young men see in their algorithm, or it's just like random things they see, like football and sports like that. So they see that and they reside and like they really receptive to that. Um, so I think that answers it partially. Um, and I think there's like this aesthetic that Trump is like very disruptive and he's like a boss and like wherever he goes he'll make the move or whatever he wants to do. Like he's like this like top dog or something. So a lot of male and it comes down to like this competition thing where it's like you see Trump, he's going into a room of all these politicians and they don't know what he's going to do. No one knows what
Yeah.
he's going to do. So there's this like aesthetic that's kind of like switching away from this idea of like decorum and like manners and like you know the decorum of like politics that we usually have conceptually, and you see this guy who's breaking everything and changing everything. He's the boss, and like I think a lot of young men are receptive to that, especially because of the idea that you know like males and like young men are not as successful in various areas that they used to be. So they're seeing someone like Trump who's able to just go in and wreck everything. And they're like, this guy really speaks for me. So I think that's one reason why a lot of young men are really receptive to him. And he's not apologetic. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
this, but young men are not really apologetic about things. So I think they respect that too.
No, I think that's really interesting too. A, I guess you could say close family. I guess you could say close family. Anyways, so he's in New York, and during so my wife, it's from my wife's side of the families. When she visited them, and then she was talking to the guy, um, and the guy was like, "Well, I think Trump is gonna be, I'm gonna vote for Trump," or I don't know if it was if the voting had already happened, I think he was already elected. I think he was saying like it's good for America because America needs uh to be like disciplined or whatever. Like America's the bad child, and like Trump's gonna come in and he's gonna make the tough choices and gonna discipline us because we need it. We have to be like punished or whatever. You know what I mean? Like and like that's why Trump is good, which I like. It's stupid. Like you sit there and you go like,
Sounds
what does that
crazy
even
to me.
fucking mean? Right. You just go just like what? Punishment comes when like you get harmed, right? Like that, like that's what punishment means. Like but that's the thinking. Like that Trump is gonna do that. Like Trump is the father figure. He's gonna come to like discipline. We needed a daddy, not a mommy. You know what I mean? Like, it really just boils down to that. Like no mommy, like mommy's the coddling guy. Like no more coddling. America's had it too much. Too much babying. We need to get slapped around and get man up. Like that was the impression of Trump. And it's kind of interesting. Like you
It's
say that,
apparently
like,
true. I mean,
and
a lot of people feel
it is
that
apparently
way.
true. Right. And I didn't feel that way at all because maybe it's because we're seeing through all the bullshit. Like that's maybe we knew some of the bullshit that was gonna come through and follow. Like you know what I mean? Like I'm sure as soon as I mention this guy's name, he's gonna pop up anywhere. Liberty Twitcher. He was here, last stream talking about. I didn't think Trump was gonna do all the things he's doing. Brother, I did. I knew because I believed him when he was
Yeah,
saying
he said
crazy
what he
shit.
said.
I believed it. So
His whole
it's
book.
just we saw this. We saw in Trump 2 1.0. It's just it's just still like as I said in the beginning, it's hard for me to see how we got here, like how we got there the first time around. Like it's hard for me to see, but like to go there again, like do we just not learn our lessons at all? Like it's just like I don't know. It's so hard for me to understand this. It really is. Like I totally understand what you guys are saying, but it's just like I, I don't know, man. I just can't get there. I don't know if that's making sense at all.
I feel like for me, how I kind of wrap my head around everything conceptually, and how like a lot of like young males are leaning towards this idea of like conservatism or Republican or like favoring Trump is I think of there's definitely noticeable deficits when it comes to like men and young males compared to women and like young women. Like for example, um, there's there's a lot of males that are missing from various areas in the workforce. So, for example, there's a lack of teachers. There's a lack of male teachers. There's a lack of fathers absent at home. I think it's like 1 in 4 children live without a biological step or adoptive father in the home. And there's a significant lack of males within the mental health fields also. I can't tell you how many times when I was doing my internship at a clinic and I had to call a parent, they would be so surprised because they thought, "Oh, I thought you would be a woman. I thought you would be a miss. I didn't expect a
Yeah.
boy." So, or like even when you look at like for example like school psychologists, I think it's like 83% are women and 16% are men. So there's these deficits in men in environments that young men are in. Like you have a lack of responsible male teachers that will teach you empathy, how to act appropriately with someone from the other gender, how to be open-minded about different political views. You
Yeah.
have a lack of mental health school psychologists or social workers that are able to talk to you about being open about emotions or acknowledging emotions or how to like cope with emotions. You have just a lack of fathers at home who are able to, teach you what healthy masculinity is, healthy manhood, and just everything related to that. So you have a lot of these young men who aren't getting those healthy relationships from older men And what do they go to? They go to their phone, they go to YouTube, they go to TikTok, they go to Instagram, they see these podcasts where you should see these men that are completely, excuse my French, shitting on women who are not prepared to have a debate or argument. And they just see this and they're like, oh yeah, this is a man who is masculine. He's winning a debate.
Yeah.
He's winning. He's seeing this data. This is what I should be learning from. So then over time, the algorithm will change and adjust and will show more of that. And then
Yeah.
you just see that all over your feed. So I think that's one reason why we're seeing this, split in how a lot of young men are becoming uh, more conservative or more Republican, because there's more content being pumped out for that population compared to people at home or in their lives that are talking to them about emotions and stuff. I can't tell you how many times during my internship, I'll give you an anecdotal. I had a student once who came to school. It was the last day of school, and they said, Cairo, we need you to talk to the student. His parents are got divorced this morning. So his parents got divorced. They told him this morning, and he went straight to school, and he's going to be staying with his mom. So I talked to him at school, and he refused to cry. He refused to do any emotions. He would just clench his fist and make an angry face. And I'm trying to tell him, it's okay to cry. Like, this is something that's going to change your life dramatically. And he just said no, because boys don't cry. Boys don't cry. I have to act tough. I'm mad. So we had to talk about when it's appropriate to be mad and when it's appropriate to be sad. But a lot of these concepts that they're being taught, these iPad kids, they're watching these videos that are being auto played after a video,
Yeah.
talking about stoicism, even though it's not an accurate perception of stoicism. It's a very flawed idea of stoicism, and being tough and being this man, how you can't show these emotions, and how that makes you seem weak. So you have these ideas that are teaching you that, being vulnerable is weak, whether it be socially, internally, and that there's these things that are catering to that also coincide with, Republican misogyny and all that. So I think it's these different worlds, this deficit in environments where you don't have these supportive males that can teach you different valuable skills on how to respect others and be, like an empathetic male. But then you also have these algorithms that are geared towards you being this very flawed, toxic perception of what a male, quote unquote, should be.
Yeah. Like a double whammy.
Yeah.
So to that point, the natural question that arises in my mind, right, is, well, where are these men? Why are they not in their life? Like, what is happening? Like, what? Okay, so to your example, right? Like they got divorced, but that doesn't mean the father can't be involved in the son's life, right? Like, that doesn't mean, like, yeah, he might not see his dad as much, but like that doesn't mean he can't be involved. Like, how did this become, like, again, I'm not expecting you guys to have an answer. It's just the question that naturally arises in my mind is like, how did they get to the point? And naturally it gets blamed on women, like, completely. I think it just does. But like, well, where is where are these men going, like, right? Like, what is happening? Like, what, you just had your 9 seconds of like pump and dump, and then you're out, like, and it's just like, that's just how it just happened. Like, I, how did it become such a epidemic, that there's uh, male loneliness, right? Like, I'm assuming it's on both sides for the growing young adults, as well as the fully formed frontal lobe developed males by now, right? Like, what is happening here? Like, that is the question that comes to my mind. Like, where are, like, it's not like these men are just like beamed up to the fucking alien ship and then they're gone, like, where are they going? Like, are they just not caring, or are they just blaming it, like,
But
so
one
to
quick point on like the professional side of it, like the teachers, the social workers, all that. Those are extremely underpaid professions. so that's why they're
Yeah.
not there.
Okay.
I'll let
True.
Cairo
True.
pick
Like,
up, but I mean, and
like,
you could argue that's because they're female dominated.
right. Like how when me and you were working for a certain
We
nonprofit.
got paid $15 an hour, $15 an hour. Like, I mean,
Right. I was the only guy in my office with 3 women working there, and how many guys with you? I think 0.
no, there wasn't a man.
Right. And every single one of my higher ups, I think like if you went like 4 letters up, was a woman. But I didn't feel threatened by that. Right? Like I didn't like it was just like okay, like this is just it is what it is. Like I don't think I ever noticed that. Like is that really that big of a factor? I don't know. Like I sometimes like I said, it's hard for me to maybe it's just how I'm wired. Like I didn't care that my supervisor was a woman or my coworkers were women. Like I just didn't care. Am I the lone voice in this, or is that like? Do you care,
You're
Cairo?
just
I'm sure,
better
like
than
you
all
notice it.
other men. You know?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like I like okay, well, if they weren't in that field, they're in at least some field, right? Like Cairo's obviously in this field. Like I was in this field. Like there's some men there. Yeah, clearly not as much because I think it's like a 1 to 4 ratio for me, and I'm pretty sure that's like all the way around. But when we're talking about like like home life, social life, like how many kids did we really see in that? Like, you know what I mean? Like at a nonprofit for mental health, like how many? Most of the time, we're dealing with adults. So when I'm talking about schools, I mean, if you just think about like back when I went to high school, my majority of my teachers were men. I think
Interesting.
out of the 8 classes that I took, 1 English teacher and well, 2 actually 2 were women, English and French. But French was an elective, so I don't really count that, you know. But my gym teacher, my social studies teacher, my math teacher, they were all guys and relatively young guys.
I didn't
My
have that. I
principal, my
had.
vice principal.
Let me see. I had. I'm just thinking, how many males did I have? I've had through the span of K through 12. I've had maybe like 3 male teachers,
Oh wow.
maybe. I've had
Really?
a social study. 2 social study teachers were men. Oh, if you're counting gym, maybe like 8. Most of them did gym.
I think
So
yeah, yeah,
male
Yeah.
gym
right.
teacher every year and a social
Yeah.
studies intermix. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like
And
that kind
you
of
were in
tracks.
Connecticut too. You were in
I
Connecticut, right, Carol?
Yeah, I was in Connecticut. But I going back to at least occupation, I definitely agree. It's the area of um a lack of good pay. I think teachers in particular don't get paid a lot. They definitely deserve more, but they don't get paid a
100%.
lot.
Right.
But so a lot of men see that, and that's not something they're interested. Because let's be honest, let's be 100% honest. People that become teachers are not in it for the money. They're in it for working with children and
Right.
raising the next generation. And I think a lot of young men are not really into that. They're more into money and social
Yeah.
status.
Okay.
So
Hold on there. I guess the chat wasn't working, so you weren't able to see it. You know Demetrius, right, Cairo?
um,
Hood Ninjas.
yeah.
Okay, so he said, "I tell you what it is. It is the fear of responsibility."
Okay. My chat's not working.
What do you think? Do you think like their men are afraid to be responsible for their families, or is it
I definitely think it's a fear
again? Then the
of.
question comes like, what? Why is there fear there?
I definitely think there's a fear of that responsibility, and I would say it's the underlying reason for that is the empathy and the understanding the consequences and the empathy of things. It's very, very, very hard to conceptualize and understand empathy and consequences. You leaving something, you leaving a family, it can make a very, very, very hard time for a mother, a kid, social economical status, but it's really, it takes a lot of mental power to conceptualize what leaving can do to not to a family, whether it be emotionally, financially, anything like that. And it's quite easy to just ghost or leave instead of thinking about that or talking it through. And I think that's why I think that's another reason why there's not a lot of males within mental health positions, because you're dealing with a lot of emotional intelligence. You're dealing with a lot of like consequences, conceptualizing other people's emotions, the responsibility that you have at hand, and that takes a lot of mental strength. I feel like a lot of males would just prefer to work construction, and just go home after that. I
Yep.
think a lot of males are more interested in physical stress than emotional stress, quite honestly. And that's why you have a lot of males that, after a breakup, you go straight to the gym, work that pain off physically, right? I think males are more receptive to,
That's what I did.
physical than emotional.
Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head, and then this is me speaking for personal. That is exactly what I did. I didn't talk to anybody. I woke up. I didn't do anything. I went straight to the gym, and I got, it was I was there twice a day. First 9 in the morning, and then 10 at night. I was there twice a day. But yeah, because you 100% right. It's just easier. Like it was just easier. It was just easier to go and like you know just that was the pre-workout fuel, like just those thoughts, and that gave you the good creatine pre-workout pump. No, 100%, 100%. Uh, I and to really go back to what I asked earlier, and this is the conversation that I had with the guy, and it kind of ties to everything you guys said, but in a little bit of a different way. So when we talk about like how men are missing, and like you guys both nodded when I said that women get blamed for this always, right? Uh, the conversation that I had with this, right? And then tell me if I'm off base. Tell me if I'm right. When we were talking about college and how a lot more women are going towards college, and then now you mentioned a key thing too, is like, well, we only care about like men a lot more, instead of like doing the emotional needs. They're rather just fulfill the financial need, or just that, and then just be like, okay, well, I did my part, right? Like that's traditionally, even that's traditionally been the case, right? Even more so for fathers that were present, like, right, like if a boomer traditionally was like, well, I'm just, I go to work, and then dinner's on the table when I get home, right? And then in immigrant families, that's even way more like I'm sure we've all seen TikToks of like how, like, not to pick on like one culture, but happened in Asian and Indian culture too, but like Mexican culture, where like the guy goes and does the hard construction job, and he comes home, and then like he doesn't even want to lift the spoon, and he wants to be like straight, like fed directly into his mouth, like the food, right? And like that is 100% the case happening. But I think, and it kind of makes sense in my head too, is as women become more and more educated, they are able to, and Dimitri said this exact same thing, female supervisors are common in modern workforce these days. They Women are able to hold a higher position in the workforce. They are able to be supervisors, so they are able to earn more. And as they go more to college, they are more successful. It is intimidating for the guy. That's why I asked, right? Like, so the story is, this guy, he works in FedEx. The guy that I talked to, this older gentleman, he works in FedEx. FedEx is a notoriously a conservative institution. A lot of the young guys that work there, when we're talking about physical labor, majority of the people that work in FedEx, you would expect to be younger men, right? But they are. So, but he's talking about this one girl that works with him. She's young. She's an immigrant. I don't exactly remember what kind of immigrant, where she's from, but she's young. But she's going to college while working at FedEx, right? So she's doing the exact same job that these guys are, but the guys aren't going to college. They aren't looking towards like the forward thinking you guys were talking about. They aren't thinking about like elevating themselves. They're like, hey, I'm here. I'm just working. I'm going to do this physical job. I'm making good money. They're getting paid like $30, $40 an hour. They're like, I'm good with this, right? But the girl's sitting there thinking like, well, I'm going to go to college, get my bachelor's, get my master's. I'm doing this part time, and then I'm going to go be like. But now imagine those two people when she gets that job, when she elevates, they go out on a date. She's and again, I'm not saying for everybody because clearly the consent, among the three of us, we don't really give a shit. But like majority of women and men both do care that like, hey, my partner needs to either make as much as me or a little bit more. And usually it's the man that's expected to make a little bit more, right? But that's not becoming the case where women are getting more and more educated. They're earning a lot more and more. So it's creating this competitive testosterone drive and this break in this family structure that we've normally seen where the man earns, the woman doesn't. But now it's the women are earning a lot more, and that it's intimidating these men, right? So that's why we see so many conservative politicians and podcasters talk about like, well, women need to go back to being a good housewife or a more traditional role, like the trad wife trend, like that's popping up, right? Like we're seeing all of that. Like it's not the woman's fault because she wants more from herself and a better life. It's your fault that you aren't planning and elevating yourself. I think that seems to be the bigger issue. I think there's just not a recognition on the side of men that no, the women are just able to do a lot more and are able to do as much as you are now, even though it's still heavily male dominated.
Because it's clearly not fueling a competitive drive. It's fueling a temper tantrum. I'm going to throw things, kick my feet, and I'm going to try to take your rights away. I mean,
exactly.
Because, I mean, you can't argue that it's fueling any sort of competitiveness, because then we would see a sudden kickstart of, oh yeah, I need to go to college, I need to work on myself, I need to be healthier, all this sort of things. And we're not seeing that. We're just seeing, oh, well, let's just go back to the way it was when they had no choice.
Exactly.
I think one thing that I would say is I think this idea of like regression or like going back, like regression is like a defense mechanism where like we usually when there's like either stress or frustration or trauma. So when you have a lot of these males or these young men that are stressed and they're frustrated with what's happening, and they start to like the defense mechanism is okay, let's go back, let's do regression, let's go back, let's go back to the past where we did have this dominance, we did have this where we did feel important and on top. And I will say I will say there a lot of what it seems like is it's a mix of frustration and also vulnerability. I'll be quite honest. As a male, it hurts me to say this, but from like anatomically and naturally, males are quite disposable. I mean, you don't really need.
Hey!
I will. Males are quite disposable. I mean, you need one woman is worth way more than one male, anatomically, quite honestly. So males have to compete for a woman usually, and usually that form of competition was income, salary, status. So when you have women that are becoming more educated, getting into higher fields, and a lot of young men feel vulnerable or insecure about that, where it's
I think it's intimidation, really. I think they're quite like it's intimidated. Like they're really intimidated. Like, well, she's gonna think she's better than me because she earns more than me, right? Like, or I'm not gonna be the man of the house, or I'm not gonna be able to run the house the way I want to run it, right? Like she's gonna throw it in my face. Well, I earn more than you, right? Like I think those feelings are very
Well,
much true.
men historically do that to women too, though. I mean,
No,
they
100%.
take that same attitude like towards their stay-at-home mom wife. They say, "Well, you don't contribute financially, so you don't do anything here." So
Right,
it's
right.
like they want this thing, the stay-at-home mom wife or whatever, even though they're still apparently frustrated by that too because they don't want all that responsibility. So it's like, what do you want? What do you want? You have to
Right.
pick one. You know, like.
Right. Again, and then me and you and I have had this conversation before, where like when I showed that video of like, well, I'm a nice guy, why can't I get the girl? Well, why is that just enough, right? Like, well, what are you doing to like make yourself better? But I guess we can talk about the problem. I think we're in Cairo, and you both have really articulated what the issue is. But I guess then the next sequence in that thing is, well, if you know what the problem is, like, well, how do we solve it, right? Like, clearly, make America great again and put women in their place and just take all their rights away is not the answer. Like, that's just an unrealistic answer. As much as the Republicans want to try it, because
Well, no,
they're
because
the
they're
ones
not going
trying
to
this,
turn back to a single earner being able to
it's impossible.
fund a household for the most part. So it's like,
Exactly.
you can take our
Especially
rights
since you
away,
want
but
to
then we're
bring
just all screwed.
especially since we want to bring manufacturing back to America, but that's a whole nother topic.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like, how do we how do we how do we change this entire narrative? Like, where do we start? Because that's where I get stuck, right? I guess that's where my knowledge or my understanding of this thing goes kind of not away. I just don't know where the beginning is. Like, well, where do I begin? How do I, if somebody is having that issue where they might feel intimidated by a woman earning more, does it matter? Like, well, it's one household. You're gonna both are like it's a household income. Think about it that way. Well, where do we start? How do we have this? How do we start this conversation? Because it's a conversation we clearly need to have.
I I think the question you asked is the $9 trillion question. um, and if there was one perfect answer, I would love to hear it, and also that $9 trillion. But
Yeah.
I think I don't think there's one perfect answer, unfortunately. I think it's very multifaceted. I think there's so many factors that are involved that, there can't just be one solution. I think there has to be multiple. But I will say, um in regards to young people, I feel like it starts at when you're young. When you're young, you get these ideas, they solidify as you get older, unless you are open to hearing uh, others' opinions or other views, which is quite hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think one thing is increased social media presence of different views, maybe more liberal views, catering more towards young men. Because I'll be quite honest, when you look at the things that young men are interested in, uh, Republicans and conservatives have got that on lock, on lock. Like, they know it, they manipulate it algorithm wise. I guarantee you, if you ask one high schooler if they have had their algorithm ever have Ben Shapiro or the Change My Mind series on their YouTube, it would be quite high. But what's
Yeah.
the equivalence for, the Democrat Party or anything liberal, right? There's nothing for young men in that realm. Or if there is, I mean, there's not a lot, right? So I think there needs to be more exposure to that. I think, I think, I think there needs to be more exposure, and it needs to come off as cool for young boys, because a lot of young boys just don't think that stuff is cool. There's no
Yeah.
guns, there's no military, there's no flashy stuff, unfortunately. But
Well, it needs to come from younger but older than them men.
right. It needs to come from, young men that look cool, have the same interests. Like, the, I think that's why a lot of people really liked, and I know Obama had his flaws, obviously, but I think that's why a lot of people liked Obama. You had a president that would go to basketball games,
Yeah.
play basketball, dapping up other people, having a list of music that he liked with like Kendrick Lamar and stuff on it, and a lot of
Yeah.
young boys saw that. They're like, this guy is cool.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
educated. He likes the stuff that I do. So I think there needs to be more people that just have common interest to what like young males like, because right now Republicans definitely have that on lock. You see
Oh,
Trump going to
absolutely.
all these things that young boys like.
Yeah.
um,
And I think again, not to like be make this a glaze stream. Like I think that's why Hassan is getting so much attention, because he does all that. He does shoot guns. He does do the fashion thing. He has all these women loving him, and he does work. He does do like this cool thing. Like it's just true. And then I I I guess that's part of the answer.
So
I,
this triggers
I don't know what exactly that teaches.
one two-part question to me. So, one, how much would you attribute Kamala's loss then to her being a woman? And part two would be, given everything that we've talked about today, is there a path to ever see a woman president? Or I guess in the near future?
I think that's a good question. I mean, this is my personal opinion here. I think actually, I'll give you a personal anecdotal. This actually didn't come from a male, surprisingly. This actually came from a woman. There is a girl within my cohort when I was doing my master's, and we were talking just about politics and stuff. And she asked me who I was voting for. I'm very hesitant to tell people who I'm voting for because I don't want people in my political life. But then she
It
said,
was
"Oh, I'm
Trump,
gonna."
wasn't it? No, I'm just.
Uh, but
I'm kidding. I'm
she
kidding.
did say she was going to vote for Trump. So I asked her, "Why are you going to vote for Trump? That's very interesting. I don't think he really respects women like that. I'm surprised you're voting for him." And she told me it was because he's a man and he will be respected in like all these different political events with other men. So if Kamala was ran and she's a woman, she's not going to be respected standing next to Putin and all these other people. And in my head, I was I was flabbergasted because I didn't expect her to give that answer, but I can
Mm-hmm.
definitely see how a lot of young men and possibly even some women, quite honestly, could see that because there is this like perception that men are supposed to be leaders in the business room or something
Yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is definitely changing. So I feel like in the future, yes, definitely there will be a woman president. Or maybe I'm just
Can I?
optimistic, but I feel like, oh yeah, yeah, you can interrupt me.
No, I'm sorry. No. Before you continue, I just want to ask, and like this, I guess changes my perception of this whole story. Is this person a person of color?
She's Persian, yes.
Oh, okay. 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 But again, like,
Well, I'll just interject real quick. I'm sorry. Throughout my life, the most of the you can't do that because you're a girl type rhetoric I heard came from other women. So it doesn't surprise me that you heard that
yeah.
from a woman.
But again, like that is an important. I think it changes. It might not. It might not mean that much for it truly a white American, I guess is the easiest way to say it, or a white Western person. But somebody like when you say Persian, that is an extremely conservative society,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that household, those cultural beliefs, they are very extremely conservative. Like the man is the leader in that house. They don't really see a lot of women, especially being from Iran. Like not necessarily I want to say there's depression in that because who am I to judge somebody else's beliefs or culture or anything like that, but it, it's just those cultural norms where like, well, women don't do that, right?
Right.
Like, so it's not surprising.
Right. It's not surprising, but it is important to know just because there's a lot of males in America that definitely could probably resonate with that view of,
Yeah, 100%.
so it was surprising to hear that, but when I heard that, I definitely learned another reason why people were voting for Trump in particular.
Mm,
But for me, I feel like I feel like history repeats itself in a way because I mean I look back at Obama, and Obama was an African American president, but a lot of people did not view a black man or African American man to be something like a president. It
yeah,
was thought to be something that only like old white men can do. But
yeah,
we opened up over time and played the cards very right, and we got him elected. I
yeah.
I think I think Kamala could have won, but I think the cards she was given were not fair. She was even for example with like I remember Joe Biden was like I'm gonna stay in this election
Yeah.
until the end. So
Yeah.
her cards were not fair. She had to rush a lot of things
For
there.
sure, for
Right.
sure. The
She
other
like screwed
circumstances
over.
were absolutely against her.
And
So
again, no, go
go
ahead.
no, you could go.
So if I'm were to answer this question, I 100% believe that a woman is absolutely qualified, and then Kamala certainly would have been qualified to be a president. Her resume is great, but I don't necessarily attribute the like, well, it's just the men wanted a male figure to be the presidency. I think that's 100% a part of it, but I think and again, the Joe Biden is certainly a part of it. I think it was just a bad card that she was handed, and from where Joe Biden was in the polls to what did she come up like 30 points just to match Trump, like almost match Trump. You know what I mean? Within the matter of time she was given, I think absolutely like she. I think this was even with all that being said, even with all that being said, I think this was a winnable campaign for the Democrats and for Kamala. I think it certainly could have been done. I think the overall strategies they ran were just wrong. I mean, I think there was so much polling that came out after the elections when all the votes were counted and like all the people were surveyed and polled. Well, I think the biggest issue, I think it was about like in the swing states and especially in Michigan and Wisconsin, like the biggest issues that swung the vote by 30 points was Gaza. You know, like I think stuff like she shied away from that issue. Like she really needed to go like, hey, no, I need to be I need to be different from Joe Biden. I think she continued to play that that card of like, well, no, I'm this presidency is going to continue as toxic as Joe Biden was. I think she needed to clearly cut away, which is a tough thing because, well, how do you cut away from your president? How do you do that? How do you cut away from your party leader? It's very hard, but I think if she had successfully talked about cutting away from, again, maybe this is my bias leaking in from Israel, stopping the war in Gaza, I think being vocal about that, I'm sure she was to a point, but like, there's so many videos of her saying like, well, we're going to defend Israel even more than Trump is. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And uh, she really needed to hammer on the point of like, well, healthcare, like key important issues. Like I think if you were to ask Americans, well, what matters more to you? Does a woman in the White House or getting healthcare? I think majority of the people would choose be like, well, I want healthcare. I don't give a fuck who the fuck is in office. Like it doesn't matter to be a monkey in there as long as free healthcare. You know what I mean? Like I think we although it is an issue that like there is inherent racism and sexism in American society, I clearly feel it. But that that is not just in white people. That is across every single minority, right? Like that is 100% there. Like I had an incident happen just this week, where another person of color just literally was well, like, this is why I don't fuck with Indians. Like to my face. So it's like that's there. So if we're just gonna say, well, like that's why like she didn't win, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think part of it is, but I think it's a mix of things. Like I think she just didn't run a good campaign.
I think when you also look at the Republican Party during that time, they were way more unified under Trump.
Yes.
So
Yes.
whenever Trump said something, they would just get on the floor and,
Yeah.
say like, yes, sir, of course,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
So there was more unity in that. So they didn't
Yeah.
have any problems there. But when Kamala was running, there was a split that was happening. It was like the older Democrats were like fighting, saying like, "Oh, Joe Biden should stay. Joe Biden shouldn't stay." So there was a bunch
Yeah.
of discourse in the
Yeah.
Democrat Party, and it gave this perception that they were unorganized, and the Republicans were able to capitalize off that. They were able to say, "Look at
100%.
this party. You want this party to run when they can't even pick someone?" And then
Yeah.
once Kamala was in, a political campaign and running for president, it takes so long just to like get the like advertisements and
Yeah.
like all these. It's very strategic and long, and she had like 1/4 of the time like
Right.
Trump
Absolutely.
had. So
I absolutely agree with all of what you both just said. I'm just thinking back on like what we've talked about today. If I'm looking at like if this huge population of young men, which seems to be translating to men in general, are looking for this walk into the room, get it done type man, this paternalistic figure. It feels like as a woman that is like an unclimbable mountain to get over.
Right. Unrealistic.
You're just like, we don't have, we're just missing whatever they're looking for just by being a woman. So
Yeah.
that's where I came from with that question. I definitely agree. I mean, Gaza was a factor. I definitely think she just was handed kind of a shit stick with that, with only having like a few months. Also, Joe Biden not even like barely even being behind her. I mean, so
he was barely behind himself.
none of them cared, but and Democrats in general, I mean, just kind of falling apart. But it almost feels insurmountable that men, especially young men, will develop just sort of this ability to see women as potential leaders.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say if I, what is it, a political strategist, the person that helps like run a campaign or something? I don't know. If I was a hypothetical political strategist for a woman that wanted to become president, I guess a strategy for me, taking everything that we kind of talked about today, was just especially with like this idea that males prefer like being on the top of a social status, competition, testosterone, what I was talking about. I guess what I would try to make my strategy would be on is stray away from this idea of men versus women and try to kind of like unify, like what Obama did was like America, go under this idea of America. America needs to be on top. It's not a gender thing, it's America thing. We want America to be number one. So you can still have this idea of what you want for women and what you want for men and being a woman, but you're using this platform or idea of America as like one concept that everyone can get behind and being like, we're going to be number one, we're going to do this, we're going to be on the top. And I think a lot of young men would see that and be like, yeah, America, we are on top, under that competitive mindset. And I think Obama did that quite well. He didn't make it about only African Americans or only black people. His speeches a lot of the time were like, black or white, we are America and we're going to do this and we're going to be on top. And a lot of people really liked that because at the end of the day, we all live in America and we all want what's best. We don't want the country to fall apart and we all lose our homes and everything. We want to live comfortable lives and be safe. So this idea of, being or like promoting this idea that like we are number one and like every American loves that idea of like America raw, so I guess I would have that as my strategy, shifting from this idea of it's gender versus gender. And, there's a woman running, and, that makes it seem like, oh, we're not going to do anything. No, we're going to be under this idea of America on top. We're doing what we can as a country or something like that.
No, and again, like, I think, yeah, right. I know I 100% agree with that. And I think when you were asking that question, and I think you were more asking, I don't know if maybe I'm speaking for you, maybe, but I had the thought of, well, does AOC speak like this? Is AOC embodying this? And I don't think she is. I don't think she is. And again, and to kind of go back to like Kamala Harris,
I don't think it's very common sentiment throughout the Democrats for some reason.
No, right, 100%. And I think there is a hint of it in Kamala Harris's campaign.
It's hard to balance talking about that in a strong way that's going to come across as clear to young men and not come off as nationalistic.
Right. Again, so I think Kamala Harris did try this by trying to court like the Republicans and Liz Cheney and stuff like that. We need to work together. But like,
because all young men look up to
Liz Cheney, exactly, and then it doesn't fit her persona at all.
Yeah.
And then again, like if she, and from what we've talked about, if we're talking about strength, she should have just leaned into her strong prosecutorial background, which again she shied from because of the negative connotation they associated with that. Was like, well, she's gonna put you in jail. You know what I mean? Like, well, look what Pam Bondi's doing, or look what Kristi Noem is doing, right? Like, if we're talking about like, oh, make it cool, like, well, Kristi Noem is fucking putting a cowboy and then going to see cop and like holding a fucking AR-15 in her hand to try to, get that persona going. But I don't know how much that really attracts men. Like, if we're talking about attracting and men, and then we're obviously talking about conservative men here. Majority of the conservative men don't want conservative women, right? So if we're talking about a presidential, again, yeah, it's totally ball game from like having envisioning somebody as your. but no, I'm just saying, like, it's totally different ball game when we're envisioning a potential life partner to a president, right? Like, the president does need to show some strength, but I don't know if that's necessarily where we start. Right, I like AOC. Obviously, I think I'm to the left of AOC. So for her to be more attractive to me, she needs to go more left. But obviously, that's not gonna help her case at all. So, but I would understand if I saw a video of AOC and she was like in a gun range shooting the AR-15. I think that only helps her. You know what I mean? Like, she's shooting down the target of something. Like, I think that helps her, right? Like, I was watching this one video where I don't know if the guy was exactly like, if the guy was exactly a Republican or Democrat or whichever way his leaning was, but he is some sort of like in the political sphere, and he's talking about, well, I think the Democrats just don't know how to handle the gun issue. Like they just don't know how to do it.
Like, they don't. Kamala spoke about having a gun. It's another one of those things where you could attribute it to her not having time to cultivate it as a genuine part of her, I guess, platform. So that it came across as disingenuine. It's still. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it just didn't work.
But did it not work because she didn't have time to cultivate it, or is just not a working topic for in general for women to have? Like, well, again, like, to my thing, like, right, if we are to assume, and we are to take, I saw a tweet today before we got on, is like, well, some political reporter is saying like, well, AOC is the front runner right now for the next presidential ticket for the Democrats. Like, she's the front runner. Well, how do we make? Well, she's already attractive with the Democratic base, whether you are a liberal or a leftist or a progressive, whatever you want to call it, right? And even to a lot of the centrist base. Like, if you just look at polling numbers in the New York election, and just in New York alone, people liked her and Donald Trump at the same time. She has a huge pull in the richest city in the world and one of the most populous cities in the world. So like that's a huge I guess how can you say like a frame like where you can say like how different ethnicities kind of see her, right? Because New York is clearly very diverse. Like you know what I mean. Every borough of I'm sure New York is very diverse, right? Or am I just imagining that? But like you could see like that she pulls well to different diversities, right? So she has the Democratic vote. Well, how do you make her more attractive to a conservative? How do you do that? Do you like you know what I mean? Like family values, I guess, or like whatever that fucking means, because clearly Trump doesn't have them. But you have to create that personification around her, right? And then the other thing you have to create is toughness, like we talked about. Guns equate toughness. Like that's it's like the simplest fucking thing, like a simple mind thing that they it's like 1+1 is 2 for like the conservative men. Like person plus gun equals tough. Like that's just how it goes for them, right? So it wouldn't change my vote for her if she ran, but do you think it does if she put on an ad and like was in the range or like was out there like fucking geared the fuck up like a goddamn ICE agent? You know what I mean? Walking down LA. Like, do you think that changes the vote for conservatives? I'm genuinely asking. I have an answer, but I don't know if that's the right answer.
I don't know. It depends. If I feel like it's really easy to tell if something is performative or not, right? So
Right.
if this is just a one-time thing where I see like AOC is going to the gun range with all this stuff on, like I'd be like, yeah, this is performative because like I've never seen this before from her,
Yeah,
but
no, but I'm saying like it's a fleshed out thing. That's what I'm saying. I'm like we're assuming that she's the runner, and then she's trying to court. Like she has the Democratic vote. If she runs, I think she 100% does.
I think
Here we go.
I think it might be. I think this might open up a gateway to a larger conversation about how women can portray strength, and it feels almost like a little bit anti-feminist to like say that, but it's like there's clearly it needs to be portrayed to attract a wider audience other than just the devout feminists who are going to vote for you anyway. So you need to portray strength, but it needs to be done in a genuine way. And
Okay.
I mean, obviously that's going to be different for all women. You know, they're not the same, but obviously I think in any way, even if it's fully fleshed out, I don't see
It's not working.
Gun range ever working.
Right. Again,
because it's not like
genuine.
It's just
it's not her.
Come off as weird no matter what.
Right. So again, how do you do it?
I don't think there's any. I don't know. Never mind. Go ahead.
No, I agree, and that was my answer. I don't think it looks genuine. I don't think it does.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's possible because anything is possible, right? Like
that's a good.
Anything,
and
I
guess not all men
we know Michael Dukakis. I know the
tough either.
Right. Like I know who Michael Dukakis is. Like I know what you're trying to say. But I'm just saying, like, he looked goofy as fuck. I'm obviously not saying like put an oversized helmet on AOC and have her stumbling around in the gun range or that. Yeah, Hillary portrayed.
Liberty walked in doesn't mean you can freak out.
No, I'm not freaking out. I'm just saying, what is too strong? If the conservatives men want strength, like that makes no sense. But I'm saying, like, I don't think it works. I don't think it works. But then again, it leads to the question of like, well, how do you do it? If we talked about, well, conservative men want this strength, conservative men want this perception of like number one. Like, how do you and AOC is I'm just using it as a placeholder. I'm just saying you could insert anyone in there. Fuck it. We talk about Chrissy Noem in there. You know, like
right,
you know what I mean.
For her. I mean, she looks stupid as hell, and I think everybody.
How do you do
both
it?
sides thinks that. So
how do you make women seem strong without the typical male masculine things that make men look or men are responsive to. Because that's what we established so far is like that's what men want, right? Men want like strong figurehead. Well, how do you do it? If we want a woman to be president, which I do.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think that's another $9 trillion question. And I think it
It's
just
tough.
yeah, and I think it just depends on the person and the personality as well. Um,
She is fiery.
AOC, yeah, AOC is very fire, but I I guess I can't conceptualize this with AOC just because I know her leaning and she's very clear on her leaning. So it's like I
Is
will
that
never
our
see
fault?
a yeah.
Like,
I
why
could
do we always
never
assume that? Like that the left is, the left can't be uh, gun-toting.
yeah. I just feel like on like a political spectrum, right? I could never with what I've seen from AOC and her beliefs and and how she talks about certain things. I just could never see like a conservative like voting for her, a conservative
Right,
man voting for her. Just be,
right.
but that's just AOC and what I've seen. Like, so
Yeah.
it's hard for me to conceptualize this just because I do have that preconceived like content.
No, but again, like, and to go to like my whole spiel this for this reason was like the Democrats don't have an answer to this really important question of guns, right? Like the conservative question is, well, we want you to have them. Well, the Democrats, like, they go, well, we want you to have them, but like we don't want you to have them. We think they should be banned. But like that, you know what I mean? Like they don't have a straight answer for this.
I think I think Kamala was getting close to the mark on a good answer for it. I just think the time was wrong because she said something on the
Yeah,
lines of like, I have a gun at home to protect like me and my family and stuff.
yeah.
And it's
But did
like
we
boom.
believe her?
Do I believe her personally? I
Pretending to be
did.
conservative, pretending to be a conservative.
If I was a conservative, probably
Did you
not
ever
just
see her
because
with
she was
one?
under Joe Biden.
Prove it.
But I'm just saying, like, right, like like we really, again, I am 100% biased in this because I'm thinking this way. I don't really see conservatives doing deep dives into their political candidates, right? Like I don't like they can fucking believe the silliest fucking thing because Donald Trump said so, right? Like we clearly have seen massive examples of this, right? So and a picture speaks 1,000 words. So if Kamala Harris is out there talking about, well, like, check me at home,
You
well,
just want
you know,
her, like a picture out there of her posing with her
but I'm just saying,
pistol or whatever
like,
she's got at home,
but
her 22.
yeah, would it hurt her? Would it have hurt her chances?
Let me ask you a question now. With you being hypothetically a conservative, so if you saw AOC in the gun range, and
Yeah,
you saw her with a big AK-47 or something,
yeah,
right? And then
yeah.
you're suspicious about that, and you see on the news like Republicans saying like, "Oh, that's fake," or obviously, would you respect her if she apologized, or would you respect her if she doubled down and said, "Yeah, I like that," and she'd post another picture with it? I think you would respect
And
that because that's kind of like the "I'm a boss" type of mentality. Like, I don't,
dude,
excuse my
that's
language, I don't give a fuck.
She just
okay. No,
posts, "Don't
no,
say it to
I'm
my
cussed like it.
face." There.
But I'm just saying, like, if I'm a conservative and I see AOC with a weapon, because right now I think conservative, like they're against their own fucking benefit. Like every single policy they hold hurts them before it hurts anybody else. So clearly I cannot relate to AOC or any single policy of hers, right? Like when she's talking about like all any of her like tax rates, and for some reason all conservative men are like factory owners, billionaires, and churning out fucking money. And then when she's talking about the rich, she's automatically talking about the guy in Appalachia sleeping in a trailer. But he has a fucking gun, I guarantee it. So if I see her, I'm like, well, you know what? Like she has a gun and I got that gun. she's not so bad. Maybe it's a door that people
I
can
think
walk
this
in and
just
look deep into
seems
it.
unnecessary. I think.
Do you
I
think
mean,
so?
every all candidates are gonna have, I guess, like a weaker spot. I mean, whether it's AOC or a totally different female candidate in the future, and they're a Democrat, assuming that they're for, like, say, common sense gun policy, they would just say that, like, you can keep your guns as long as you pass. Like, I'm not going to take guns away, keep them, I don't care, but these are the rules, and that's what's in place. I mean,
And
I think
majority
it's
of
silly
Americans
to
want that.
say, let's let. Well, right. I mean, again, I think the hyper fixated on no laws on guns at all are even probably a small percentage of the conservative young male population that we're talking about. I mean,
No,
and even still, those people aren't gonna. Nobody is going to be their mind's not going to be changed by some politician in full getup with guns in both hands. I mean, I don't.
and again, like I agree. Like if you even no matter again, maybe I should say no matter. Like right now, if you were to ask any left-leaning MAGA person, be like, "Well, would you vote for AOC?" They're 1,000% no, right? They don't know anything about her. I guarantee you.
Mm-hmm.
Guarantee you, everything they've heard about her is probably some sort of misconception or a flat-out lie, right? They believe she's earning $3 million a year, but you look up our taxes, like not even
Sure.
anywhere near that. But they believe it because, well, guess what? Who said it, right? So,
Yeah.
again, like that just goes to say, like when you talk about, well, majority of the American population wants common sense gun law. But that just sounds like to these conservative and maybe a lot of independents, because again, thanks to Fox News and this right wing media, is like, well, they want to take your gun away. Like as soon as they hear that, they go, well, no, it's my right. No infringing on the Second Amendment. You know what I mean? Like, so how do you change that perception? Like we're talking about purely a perception here. We're like, you know what I mean? Like, well, how do you change that perception? Like, to be able to like not let this media, whether it's Fox News, whether it's anybody else, like completely manipulate that conversation.
To Democrats overall, I don't think it's
Right. Again, and that's my point, that they don't have an answer.
Yeah.
It often just feels like, at least right now, that the Republican Party is just more unified. So the news is way more unified under Trump, and
I don't know though, especially over this. I don't know because in a matter of sense, it's very cult-like that they all see Trump as the figure, but within this whole sphere of underneath Trump, it's very divided. Where you look at Tucker Carlson, who is a ardent supporter of fucking Trump, and then you look at Steve Bannon, then you look at Matt Gaetz, and you look at MT, fucking the other fucking Lauren Boebert and Elon Musk. Like they're divided in so many of these like things what they want the government to be. Elon wants the government to be a small. Trump wants it to be massive. That was the whole fight. Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson, MTG, they don't want a fight with Iran, but like, well, you swing over to Lindsey Graham and dumbass Ted Cruz. He wants to be fucking standing on the corpse of Khamenei. You know what I mean? Like, so
Right.
there is this divide in there, but I think that divide is between themselves. But when it comes to Trump, which is the all-powerful cult leader, they go, yeah, whatever he fucking says is right, even though that's changing.
And I will say, like, your example, yeah, what you said is right. But even then, when someone does disagree, have you ever noticed how they go from mainstream to like not mainstream anymore? They go into
Yeah,
like
yeah,
all the
yeah,
way at the
yeah,
bottom.
yeah,
Like,
100%. Right. No,
and even Elon
I
apologized for some of the stuff
yeah,
he said. So it's like there's
100%.
definitely more. Um, unity, and I feel like I
Yes.
feel like the unity is more cult like, right? But it
Yes.
definitely works in supporting their agenda, while Democrats are not unified. There is not a lot of
No, no,
unity.
no. There's no single leader. Yes, that hasn't emerged. 100%. In the Republican side, there is absolutely, like, Trump is all powerful. You don't argue with him. You don't go against him, no matter who you are. And that figure's not there on the Democrat side. Absolutely, no. I 100% agree with that. But I'm just saying, like, even if whoever that might be, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be a woman. It could be Pete Buttigieg, right? Like, he is not seen as manly. But would it be, would he be more manly if he grew out a beard, which he's doing, and then he was in the range and he was suited up, booted up? Like,
I
would that make him more manly
I think I feel I
or more
it feels
appealing?
it feels very it feels like a dichotomy here, right? It feels like it's either like gun, no gun, have to have big guns in the range, or no guns at
Yeah.
all. Well, I
Well,
feel like when we talk
that's what they
about
speak, though. No, or am I wrong in that?
right, but I feel
It's
like the thing is with like a politician or like running for president, you're not going to get you're not going to get everyone to like you. You just need a lot of people to like you.
yeah.
So
Agreed.
you can't get
So how
everyone,
do you
and
get that?
there's no way you're gonna get those Republicans that are very like big AK-47 in the range, maybe like three of them in your hand on your team, right? You just right, as
Right.
long as you're able to unify your party as much as possible, and then maybe some people in the middle, or maybe like softer on the right, then I think you have a really good chance. And when you look at guns, a lot of people that are in the middle, whether it be like middle left or middle right, they like their guns, but they just want it for home and protecting their family. They don't care
Yeah.
about going to the range with like three AK-47s in their backpack.
And
So once you have this idea, or you like cement this idea that like you like understand how guns are important to the country and the history, and you value them from like a family and home perspective, I think you get a lot more points than just going to the range with like four AK-47s, because then you start to get more into that like extreme like performative stuff, and you're not going to get anyone there. You just
and I,
need to
and
be
I,
like a middle ground person in that range, I think.
and I think you got to the point that I was trying to get you guys. That I think that's it right there. I think that's it right there. If I see a commercial, if a and I'm right leaning, and I see am a sensible, not a fucking nut job, because there's no talking to them anyways. You know, if I see a commercial of AOC or Pete Buttigieg or anybody from the Democratic side, I think that's the answer right there. You said it right. Like, it's not in the range, but it's at the house where it's properly stored. They show, like, the candidate or whoever, like, however they want to, like, dress it up. It doesn't necessarily have to be the candidate himself. I think it does benefit if the candidate has some sort of acting done right there, where they're showing safe storing practices, or like, do maybe like a clip of, like, well, hey babe, you want to go take the you want to go to the shooting range and show everybody how we safely do it? Have you seen my license anywhere? Like, you know what I mean? Like, something like that, along the lines of that. Like, wait, hey, like, they use guns, but they're doing it safely, right? Like, they got their license, they're storing them safely, like, and all that. I think that speaks a, a lot louder than just being at the range. I think if they do that, right, because you're talking about sensibility, because guns aren't going anywhere from American culture. I think they're so ingrained into it. They're ingrained into the Constitution. They're not going anywhere, right? So I think I'm just using guns as an example. We can really, literally talk about anything, I think. But I think when we're talking about speaking strength, you're not you're not going to get any. Nothing else speaks manliness or strength or whatever than guns, I think. So
I
I think if
I
they do
th-
it that way, I think it speaks a louder volume. I think you have it 100% right.
yeah, I think, and of course I'm not an expert in this area right here, but I think a strategy, right? I feel like for men in politics, it's very easy, right? You could come off as
Yes.
whatever you want and you can get a crowd. You could be super
Yes.
Republican and get a crowd, super liberal get a
Yeah.
crowd. In the middle you can get a crowd. But
Yeah.
for women, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because obviously I'm not a woman. But I feel like it's very hard. If you come off as too masculine, you're gonna have less people. If you come off as too
Yeah.
feminine, you're gonna get less people. So
Yes.
you need to like wield this like middle ground that's like very like hard to manage to like
Yes.
maximize people. And I'm just thinking like what would that be? And I guess from the top of my head, like I always think about this like the stereotypical average American mother, she has kids, she's bringing them to
Mhm.
American school, she's driving them, she's this
Yes.
strong mother that has a family, she has a gun at home to protect her family, she cares about laws to protect her family. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, I just see that as like this idea that a lot of people could get around. Like this average
Yeah.
American
Yes.
mother, she goes to the baseball game, she watches her kids
Yep.
at the football game, she
Yep.
has a gun to protect her family.
Yep.
I just think of that like
That,
that, and I think a lot of people would be receptive to that. I think
no,
because
100%.
who can really hate a
Yeah.
mother figure?
Well, sure, but I think that also will come with its own weaknesses. I mean, it's
Right.
gonna say,
Yeah.
well,
Of
why aren't
course.
you prioritizing your family? How are you going to be president?
Yeah.
Even if they have adult kids, it's going to be, well,
Yeah.
shouldn't you be with your grandkids? Shouldn't you be helping out your kids? Shouldn't because
Yeah.
that's just the reality of being a woman. I mean,
Yeah.
so yes, I agree. I do think that's a very when I think about American femininity and how it's portrayed, that's probably what we idealize. So, yes, that probably would go far. And if you look at the careers of politicians, like successful female politicians, most of them do have one child at least. So, yes,
Yeah.
I agree with that. I just think a lot of challenges also come with that. I mean,
Oh, I
Yeah.
absolutely. Like women just have it hard, infinitely harder than men do in politics. I 100% agree with that. But again, like that's I think that's a conversation. Like, well, how do we get a woman president? Like, how do we get there? Like, I think the three of us, like, again, Kamala's not exactly on the top of my list, but I voted for her, and if she was running against anybody else, well, I shouldn't say anybody else, but I'm saying like anybody that is way to the right, we would probably vote for her again, right? Like
sure.
not my pick at all. Like if I had a choice, I'm not picking her.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, but if she's running, I'm voting for her, right? Because I'm infinitely more able to negotiate and portray my like policies. uh I'm even able to relate like one or two policies to her than I am ever to a Donald Trump like figure, right? Like so, but that's just how it goes, and like the conversation isn't really for us. It's more for like, well, the pretending to be conservative, like that we are pretending to be, right? Like it's for those people, like, well, how do we get them to do, right? So I think and you 100% what you said is right, is like, well, if she's too strong, like a Hillary figure, or anybody, well, that's not American. She
I mean,
doesn't, she can't exactly be Rosie the Riveter,
maybe a Hillary figure who hasn't been in politics as Hillary was and thus
Yeah.
gathered
Yeah.
a whole field of dirt. Maybe
Yeah.
they would be successful. Maybe somebody like
Maybe.
her but not
It's
her
possible.
would be successful. I mean,
Yeah, like
there's not
a
really
new
any way to
face.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, but who's out there? The only one,
Right.
the only one that I can think of is at least Slotnick. That's the only person. Don't want her to be my president. But again, I would vote for her. Even though it's just
I guess. I mean, that would kind of feel like
pure neoliberalism.
that would kind of feel like throwing a vote away. I feel like she's to the right of Kamala, even. So it's like
Exactly, but I'm just saying, like, well, we're talking about the strength CIA. like military trained, like like she could be at the gun range and it would seem genuine.
Sure, I mean,
so
I
like
think
portrays
if we
that.
wanted to, I still think there's more to like that could be fleshed out there. I feel like women aren't going to get as much credit for military service and stuff like that as a man would.
Yeah,
I mean,
of
it's just
course.
like it's it's like okay, I'm glad she did that, but
right. She probably didn't do much. She was probably in the office somewhere. Yeah.
Right. So
She was probably somebody's secretary. Right. 100%. No, absolutely. I mean, like you can't question somebody like Tammy Duckworth. Like they can't do that to her. But again, like she comes up with, well, she's disabled. How's she gonna be able to handle all this? A whole bunch. It's always an issue. That's what I'm saying.
Lose a limb to be eligible to be a female president. I mean,
no, I 100% agree. But I again, like my thinking whenever like I always try to put myself in the other person's shoes because my mind's made up. I mean, it's not out of stubbornness. It's just out of pure like, well, what's good for the general public of America, right? Like Donald Trump's policies they were never going to be good for America, as we can clearly see. It's just been 5 months, and we're about to enter into a war. The American massive cities are just fucking burning ablaze. The Marines are on the ground against Americans. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's if even one of those thing that had happened to another president, like lost our mind. And he's done like all of those in just 5 months. Like the only thing we remember Jimmy Carter doing was just doing like that, the signing of the what was the thing he signed with Egypt, Jordan, and Israel. Like that's the only thing he ever did. We don't remember, you know what I mean? Like Obamacare, and then killing like those two things. Like you mentioned Trump, like it's like a new fucking world-shattering every fucking week, right? So it's just clearly he's not the good president that that everybody expected it to be. But here we are. I lost my track of thought. I don't even know where I was going. I just kept going. But anyways, yeah. I lost track of time. I don't know what I was talking about that, but
well, it sounds like
wrapping it up.
The men need some help.
The men do need help, and you know what? Maybe not a hot take. I think it's kind of
stop blaming women for all their problems.
They gotta stop blaming women. Yes, 100%. They gotta stop blaming women. And I think we need a woman leader.
Each other.
I think it's gonna take some time, but I definitely think more like communities that are centered, maybe like more men who do have empathy are willing to, partake in community events, supporting young men, just like going out there and supporting their community. I think more communities support like that from, men who have good values, good empathy, good open-mindedness. I think more community engagement like that would definitely help. But I mean, it's not instant, unfortunately. It's gonna take some time.
I think this would take like a generational shift. I mean,
absolutely.
We're not seeing it in a long time.
So. I think the solution is I have the solution. They need to come watch ATF all the time. That's it. We'll fix them.
Yeah, we're fixing the men. We're fixing the gender divide.
We are
really just changing the world over here.
One stream at a time.
Do you feel bad for not being a psychiatrist now?
Me?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Listen.
All the young men you could be helping. No, I'm kidding.
No, I think I would have loved it. I would have loved to be doing what Cairo's doing, 100%. But or being a psychiatrist, but I don't think it was my calling, really. I think I'm realizing that now. I think it, and I would still love it. I think it does speak to me because I think I am empathetic. I try to always put myself in. That's always my thought process. Like I want to like how are you thinking, and like how can I like if you don't like that thinking, you know what I mean? Like to be able to really, truly understand somebody else. I think that's the best thing about psychiatry, and like to be able to work with uh, other people is like, well, how can I help you? You know what I mean? Like, and like, to see where everybody's coming from. But I feel like that's a tough, man. Like to be able to take all that all the time at home. You got to imagine you're gonna see some stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Some of them are human beings, not in shapes. So I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay not being that.
I will say the first time, I will say personal anecdotal. I had a client that I was interning under a psychologist, and I interned under her. And the first time I had to tell someone face to face that they were diagnosed with depression and they had symptoms that were very much linked to depression.
Yeah.
And they started crying, I felt like I shattered someone's world because I was
Yeah.
here delivering the worst news possible, and I definitely cried after that. I went and got a boba after that because
Yeah.
I did not feel good, but
It's
Same
tough.
here.
But it's tough. Like when you know when you see the pain in somebody's eyes after and it's you're not fault, but you do, I'm sure, felt a little bit responsible. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I just maybe ignorance was bliss, but probably wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
Especially in the case like depression. But that's all I'm saying. So I'm good where I'm at. I think my life led me to where I'm at, and I'm good with it.
Good deal.
Do we want to wrap it up here? I think
Let's
this
wrap
is
it up.
this is great. I loved it.
Yeah.
So far, been one of my favorite streams. Absolutely,
oh,
we should
I'm
do
glad I
this.
could support in that.
No, no,
Absolutely. Come
it was
back. Come back
100%
whenever
because
you
we
want.
want you to come back more often. Listen, brother, we were supposed to do this a while back.
uh,
Through my negligence, I 100% take the fault for that.
it's
Um,
okay. It's summer now, so I'm a little more free. So
yeah,
it worked out. It works
no,
out in mysterious ways. So there's
kidding.
that.
But thank you for joining us. I think these conversations like definitely need to be had, even though we might not be speaking to like a crowd of thousands, but I think even if like somebody stopped by, somebody scrolled and listen to a little bit of it. I mean,
Yeah.
towards the end, we kind of got off topic on the guns. Like the guns just take over, man. They just do.
Yeah, you
Um,
really hyperfixated on this gun.
but I'm just saying, like I'm just saying, even if somebody listened to it even a little bit and like took something away from like maybe it's not the women that are ruining it. Maybe if women are gaining ground, maybe we need to walk in lockstep with them instead of trying to be their anchor. That's how I visualize it, at least. And maybe that changes somebody's relationship. Maybe that they have a young kid at home, and then um, they they're more involved in their life. A kid has a father figure. I think that's important. I think of uh, as you've clearly articulated, I think that's an important thing to have. So, we'll have more of these conversations.
Yeah, I think the first step in order to help anyone is just opening that conversation. I think
Yeah,
we usually, whether it be like politically or like just worldviews in general, we usually keep it to ourselves and we're very like dogmatic about it. Like once it's in our head, it's kind of like this idea of what are people more comfortable with, the truth or their belief, right? And I think a lot more people are more comfortable with their beliefs in their
yeah,
head. So I think
absolutely.
once you have that conversation, even though it takes a lot of strength just to hear someone else's view or
Yeah,
critique, it's helpful and it gets you closer to the truth. So I think people just need to have those conversations more, and just start thinking of like the world isn't black and white. It just needs to be more open-minded, and it's not all women's fault, and it's all not all guys' fault. There's stuff that we
Yeah,
need to work on, and there's stuff that
yeah,
young men need to work on, and there's stuff politically we need to work on, and we just need to figure out how.
yeah. Yeah, no, and you clearly know my friend circle and what kind of conversations we have. We have conversations about shaboing boings. You know what I mean? We're not. I'm not. I'm not having a lot of conversations. So, this was awesome.
Thank you guys
But
for
I
having
guess
me. I appreciate it.
no, brother. Thank you for
Yeah,
coming
thank you.
by. I
Thank
really
you for
appreciate it.
coming. And again, come back.
Yeah.
Thank you.